For the first time in a generation, the House of Representatives passed two historic bills on March 18th, H.R. 6 and H.R. 1603, that could lead to the legalization of millions of immigrants in the United States.
好，欢迎来到瑞视频，我是 Jennifer。4月9日，美国少数族裔媒体服务中心举办线上座谈会。
So the two bills we're talking about are H.R. 6, the Dream and Promise Act, and H.R. 1603, known as the Farm Workforce Modernization Act.
当天的研讨会是针对美国近期国会众议院通过的两项立法，一项是 H.R. 6美国承诺及梦想法案，另外一项是 H.R. 1603农业现代化的劳动力法案。这两项法案旨在解决100多万滞留在美的无证人士的合法化问题。4月9日，美国少数族裔媒体服务中心召开的研讨会邀请的6位嘉宾对此问题进行了分析及预测。6位发言的嘉宾包括两党政策中心移民与跨境政策董事总经理特蕾莎布朗，人道权利移民政策与宣导联盟总监约瑟夫维莱拉，我们团结的梦想传播总监穆诺兹，UndocuBlack Network 联合总监劳伦斯，农场工人联合基金会全国公关经理伦哥。下面请看美国新闻速递来自洛杉矶的报道。
Deferred enforced departure holders, TPS status holders, and children of non-immigrant visa holders who may age out of status. They must be continuously physically present in the U.S. since January 1st, 2021, pass a background check, and be enrolled in or complete an educational program to qualify. To adjust from this conditional status to a permanent green card, they must complete their educational programs or a term of military service or be employed. Those receiving a cancellation of removal under TPS or DED status would be eligible for permanent residence within 3 years of the date of enactment. And estimates by the Migration Policy Institute indicate that there may be as many or more than 3 million people who would be eligible under this bill who fall in one of those qualifying statuses. H.R. 1603, the Farm Workforce Modernization Act, as I mentioned, was also passed in the last Congress and brought to the floor of this Congress. It passed the House by a vote of 247 to 174, with 30 Republicans supporting the bill and 1 Democrat who voted against it, and of course, all other Democrats supporting it. This bill would provide a pathway to a green card and the ability to apply for citizenship to farm workers who meet certain work requirements. It would reform and expand the H-2A temporary agricultural worker visa program as well. After the bill passed the House, Senators Michael Bennett, a Democrat from Utah, and Mike Crapo, a Republican from Idaho, have said they will introduce companion legislation in the Senate soon. The bill would provide a certified agricultural worker visa to undocumented people who have at least 1,035 hours of agricultural work during the 2 years before March 8th, 2021. The status would be valid for 5.5 years and can be extended. And they can apply while they have this status for green cards after they meet various requirements, including performing agricultural work for a number of years after getting the CAW status or the certified agricultural worker status. And again, there are estimates that there are more than 1 million undocumented farm workers who could become legal under this bill. As I mentioned, the bill also changes the H-2A temporary agricultural visa for future workers. It creates an electronic platform for filing and processing these cases, something that employers have asked for a long time. It modifies and adjusts the prevailing wage, the required wage that must be paid to H-2A workers. It changes and updates the domestic recruitment requirements to show that employers have tried to hire US workers for jobs in agriculture before offering it to foreign workers. It would guarantee the workers a minimum number of work hours, which indemnifies the workers should there be an issue with delays or inability for all the crops to come in due to weather or other extenuating circumstances. It also expands the visa to work that is agricultural but is not temporary or seasonal. So some of these visas could go to year-round people, and it reserves a separate set of visas for just those in the dairy industry, which has been a big demand of dairy employers across the country. It does require mandatory use of the E-Verify program, which is an electronic system to verify employment eligibility for the agricultural industry to verify all future employment after these new visas are in place. And it permanently authorizes a housing program and provides financial assistance for rural rental housing and off-farm labor housing for agricultural workers. These were very big demands of many of the farm unions and advocates.
My name is Joseph Villela, Director of Policy and Advocacy with the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights. We are a statewide membership organization with national impact. For decades, this country has been sending one word and one message to immigrants, and that's no. Even as we accept their labor, this nation has said no to our families. Even as we accept their entrepreneurship, we have said no to their dignity. Even if we accept their sacrifice, the government has continued to say no to their freedom. And so for those reasons, at the end of the last year, Cheryl launched a campaign known as Yes to Immigrants Forward. And essentially what we hope to get out of this national campaign is to make sure that we provide a permanent relief to all immigrants, regardless of their statuses, including those who are protected under DACA and TPS. I also want to highlight that I think the other two bills that we want to one other bill that are still pending on the House, and our hope is that they'll be considered for vote, is the U.S. Citizenship Act, which is essentially President Biden's blueprint that was introduced, and our hope that that will be voted on, as soon as possible. And also we have another bill that was introduced both on the Senate and the House, and that is the Citizenship for Essential Workers, who were introduced by Senator Padilla, but then also House Member Castro. At least for us, one of the things that we see about DACA and why it's so important that we speak about immigration in the broadest terms is that we see some of the challenges that we're facing right now due to our broken immigration system. And even though currently approximately 600,000 individuals are protected under DACA, these individuals, who the majority of them, 2/3 are 25 years or younger. The majority of them are women, about 53% of those, and this is based on the Pew research. We believe that even though they have a temporary protection, the fact that we had a president for 4 years that was undermining this program, and oftentimes we saw our own membership feeling a sense of loss, because they did not understand why we have a previous president that was attacking them every single day. But most importantly, their legal status and actions and living in lives will be threatened by just every change of an executive order.
As a result, HR 6 is really important for Liberian DED holders as well, because it gives more time. Time is important. I think now more than ever, we understand the value of time, being at home, having lost loved ones, and just understanding that it is not only citizens that have gone through this process of a pandemic and life in America during uncertain time, TPS holders and DED holders have as well. This bill gives time. It gives 3 years for them to be able to adjust their status, for them to get what it is that they need to be able to do that. It is a finite number of people based on the days that they've been in the country. So we are talking about the folks that lost their status.
My name is Jose Munoz. I serve as the National Communications Manager of United We Dream. We are the nation's largest network of undocumented immigrant young people. I myself am also a queer DACA recipient. Thank you so much for the invitation to represent United We Dream, and so excited to be on this call with so many other wonderful folks in this fight with us. I'm excited to talk about the importance of moving legislation this year that provides a pathway to citizenship for millions of undocumented people. I myself know firsthand the importance of this fight. I came to the US when I was just a few months old and have been living with the uncertainty of being undocumented in the United States for 30 years. In 2013, I received DACA for the first time, which allowed me to obtain a work permit, get a driver's license, and finish college. It alleviated some of the fear of potentially being detained and deported. But unfortunately, we have seen over the past 4 years that DACA recipients like me have lived our lives court case to court case. Even after the Supreme Court thwarted the Trump administration's plans to end DACA in June and potentially deport hundreds of thousands of DACA recipients like me, to this day, DACA still remains at risk, with a court in Texas potentially ruling any day now on the legality of the program. And so for hundreds of thousands of DACA recipients, including the over 60,000 LGBTQ DACA recipients like me, a pathway to citizenship is an imperative.
My name is Leydy Rangal. I am the UFW Foundation's National Communications Manager. The UFW Foundation is a nonprofit organization, and for more than 15 years, the UFW Foundation has mobilized farm workers across the country to advocate for more equitable policies, such as immigration reform, pesticide protections, heat standards, hazard pay, and other worker protections. We engage our constituents in systemic change to break the cycle of poverty while also providing critical services. In fact, the UFW Foundation is the largest federally accredited immigration legal service provider in California. The UFW Foundation, as we just heard, also is a sister organization but separate organization to the United Farm Workers. And for me, the plight of farm workers is not academic, because I am one of them. I am a farm worker. My parents are farm workers, and my family is also one of those undocumented farm worker families that would benefit from the Farm Workforce Modernization Act. My parents, siblings, uncles, and cousins all work in agriculture, doing the difficult yet skilled labor necessary to keep America fed. I also have worked in agriculture for many years to pay my way through college. The COVID-19 pandemic, as we know it, has really solidified for all of us in the American public what we have always known, and that's that farm workers have always been essential and are crucial to America's communities, economy, and food supply. The reality of farm workers stands in sharp contrast to their designation by the federal government as essential critical infrastructure, as essential workers. Out of the nation's 2.4 million farm workers, roughly half are undocumented. So we're talking about more than 1 million of them who are here without legal status. A path to immigration for undocumented farm workers is critically important to our nation's food supply and agriculture system, and a more stable farm workforce means greater food safety and security to the benefit of all Americans. And that's why today I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about our agricultural immigration bill, the Farm Workforce Modernization Act. You know, growers say they need a stable workforce, and undocumented farm workers need legal status. That's why in 2019, after very long months of complex but thoughtful negotiations between lawmakers from both parties, the UFW Foundation, the United Farm Workers, and most of the nation's grower associations, the Farm Workforce Modernization Act was created. And this bill would let undocumented farm worker families like mine in this country, who are in this country now, and I think that that's a good point to emphasize on, is that we're talking about immigrants who are already in the United States, right? And it does not have anything to do with what's happening in our southern border.
I've been an immigration lawyer for 24 years, and I have clients who I've been working with for almost that length of time, who are going through the legal immigration system, being sponsored by their employer. And because of the per country limitations, we have limits on the number of people in each category who can immigrate from any given country, and it's based on country of birth. This has affected, in the family category, people born in Mexico or the Philippines, where we have many long-standing ties with those countries. And it's affected in the employment categories, mostly people born in India or China. And over the last more than a decade, the priority dates, the people's place in line has moved so slowly that now families who brought their children here when they were, before elementary school, they're now finding that their children are turning 21 years old. They are not eligible for a dependent H4 status or L2 status or E status anymore. And some of them are transitioning over to student visas. Some of them cannot do that because they're disabled. They're being forced in a very difficult situation, being really in the same situation as anyone who is a beneficiary of DACA, who is a dreamer. And so there's a group of these young people who are now advocating to try to be part of the DREAM Act. One of them is Deep Patel with ImproveTheDream.org, who's trying to advocate for inclusion of basically what Theresa mentioned in the beginning is one of the additions to this HR 6 was adding in people who are the children of H-1B or L-1 or E immigrant or non-immigrants who are in the process of immigrating, but it's taking so long that they age out. Now, there was some legal arguments that were working for a while, which would allow the parents, once they became a permanent resident, to then in turn file for their children and get the original priority date. But those cases were struck down by the US Supreme Court. And unfortunately now what happens is, let's say a kid comes in when they're 5 years old and now they're 21 and their parent gets the permanent resident status finally after all those years of waiting, but they don't.
What is the role of public opinion at this point? How useful is it, and could we lose it over time?
So I think where public opinion is most effective is by constituents of the members within their district. They react very strongly to what they are hearing when they are in their town hall meetings, when they get their constituent calls in their offices, what the local papers are saying, what they see and hear when they go home.
As members of the media, to ensure that we are focusing on the realities of people's lives and focusing on the humanity that we each deserve, regardless of our immigration status.
For all of you is to report on the human stories, report that voters want a solution, and report the current realities, as mentioned, that immigrants are facing, but then also their contributions to their communities.
When we're approached by the media, they tend to come at us with interest in stories that are talking about like low-skilled workers or just really dehumanizing stories, which are totally not even the case.
To understand the reality is that we are a nation of immigrants and that the immigration policies are unfair.